Hey, PreSales Collective, it's your host, James Kakis, and today I'm going to be joined by Kevin Mefford, Head of Community at PreSales Collective. The topic of today's episode is the Spring World Tour. If you haven't heard the news already, the PreSales Collective is hosting events in 17 cities across the globe. Yes, across the globe. We will be hosting in-person events to bring the community together. And so I don't want to get into too much here in the opening because Kevin and I really get into the what and the why and the value that we've already seen from the couple cities that we've hosted events in. And so whether you're an aspiring pre-sales professional, been in the role, you're a leader, definitely check out today's episode because we really hope that you will understand why we're doing the Spring World Tour and that we will see you in a city over the next couple of weeks. If we're not coming to your city on the Spring World Tour, we can give you ways that you can get engaged to host a casual networking event in your city. Enjoy.
It shouldn't take weeks to create a custom demo. You've got a deal on the line, and momentum is everything. DemoStack lets you spin up a tailored demo environment in minutes, so you can showcase your product in the best light on every call. It's as close as it gets to the real thing, but now you can edit content with a point and click to craft a story that resonates. No code needed. This means less time on admin and more time impacting deals. Make the live demo count with DemoStack. Learn more at demostack.com.
Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the PreSales Podcast. How's it going this morning?
Hey, James. It's going great. Good to chat with you again.
I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time.
I know. It feels like it's been 18 hours since we last talked.
I always think it's fun to have someone who I work with and talk to on a daily basis come onto the podcast because now I feel like it's our regular conversation, but it's just recorded for everybody to hear. I'm excited for today's topic of the Spring World Tour.
Me too. Glad to be here and very excited to talk about it.
So Kevin, obviously you're the head of community for PreSales Collective, but can you just quickly talk to us about your pre-sales career journey? Like what got you to where you are today?
Sure. So like everyone else, fell into it, didn't think this was a job, worked kind of into pre-sales and then had a fairly long career in pre-sales at a few different companies. And then when the opportunity came about to join the PreSales Collective, I jumped on it. It was a chance to meld all the things I'd been doing professionally in pre-sales and knowing all of that with all of the volunteer work that I've been doing in my personal life. So it's been a great journey in the last few months, and I'm super excited about everything we've accomplished as a company, hiring new people, bringing on, actually becoming a real company now instead of just a volunteer organization, which is what it felt like a little bit before. It's just been such a great journey so far, and I can't wait to see where we take it from here.
Thanks for that, Kevin. And for those who want to hear and learn more about you and your journey, they can listen to PreSales Podcast episode 83, Meet the Team, where you and Maddie joined me for a discussion. But Kevin, let's talk a little bit more about your experience. So one, I just want to thank you for taking a chance on joining this two-person team that felt like the volunteer community as we continue to build a real business and organization. But you have just done an incredible job since you've come. Like we could not do this without you. Your attention to detail and quality work is super high, and I feel like the community feels it. Now that you've been in the job for months at this point, what's maybe been the most surprising thing about this role?
For me, it's been a few things. Probably the amount of affinity that the community has for the PreSales Collective and the PreSales role in general still continues to impress me. And then also probably the level of activity and the process and the things that you and UG put together on your own. It still baffles me that the two of you were able to build this up as far as you have. So even with the team that we have, we're obviously growing it farther and going even bigger, but it's amazing to me how much process was already in place, how many steps were already laid out for a two-person startup. And we joke about it all the time that it's, because we're all pre-sales people. We know how to build process. We know how to build things. And so it shouldn't be surprising, but it still is of, hey, for a very small company, we actually really have our act together.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. And I think on that, it is because we're pre-sales professionals, but I think it's allowed us to do so much more with less and create execution and create a playbook on the way we do things that allows for repeatability. Just like any good sales process or any go-to-market motion, you have repeatability and you have efficiencies there. So I feel like we've done the same. But I think to your first point, Kevin, that's why we do this. The affinity that folks have to this profession and to this job, because this profession has been so underserved and really under-resourced for so long. And to see everybody coming together and feeling the experience in these in-person events, I mean, it's just been incredible. And I don't want to get too far into that, but you're absolutely right. It has been amazing to see. And thanks for all that you're doing, especially as it comes to just empowering the community and continuing to lead by example. It's great, Kevin. So let's get into this. Today's topic is the Spring World Tour. One, I love that we decided to call this the Spring World Tour. I feel like a rock star when we're on the road. And fun fact, you actually made some PreSales Collective Spring World Tour t-shirts. Is that right?
That's right. So they'll be in the store shortly. Everyone can pick one up. We decided to have a little bit of fun with it because we're getting out there. It's a change for us. We're back on the road. We're hearing that theme over and over again. And so for us, naming it the World Tour was a way to, have a little bit of fun and some extra branding with it to build some excitement.
Some people are like, hey, why did you decide to do a Spring World Tour? Like, why are you doing this world tour and going to all these cities? Well, all of us are remote and we don't have offices. And so our offices are now when we go to the city and host these events. For me, I'm ready to get out of my house after being on the road for years. But I love the t-shirts. If anyone wants to buy one, presalescollective.com/shop. We sell these at cost. We do not make any money on these. We want to make sure everyone has one. And so, Kevin, great job on the design. But what is the Spring World Tour?
It's a series of networking events that the PreSales Collective is hosting around the world. We really, truly mean that. So in our spring tour, we're doing 17 cities across several continents. And really, you said it, we want to get back out in the field. We want to see our community members. We wanted to make this really big entrance over the next 3 months. That's why we created this Spring World Tour. It's a chance for us to get out there, see people, meet members that we may have only talked to virtually at this point.
I have the tour memorized. I know every city, every date, and who's going to what city, which is awesome. So for those who want to know what cities are on the tour, where should they go, Kevin?
Super easy. You can come to presalescollective.com, sign up for our member hub. You can see the full calendar of everywhere we're going to be.
So Kevin, you started talking about some of the reasons why we're doing the Spring World Tour, but let's get maybe a little bit deeper. Why are we doing this Spring World Tour?
Really, it comes down to the fact that a major component of the PreSales Collective is to build a community for pre-sales professionals. You mentioned it earlier. We're an underserved group. We're always that forgotten piece of oh yeah, those people exist too. And we just haven't had that community. And frankly, the PreSales Collective, we've done a great job of that virtually because we had to early on. But really, nothing beats the power of meeting in person and having those one-on-one conversations with people. So we wanted to host these events to give people the opportunity to meet other community members. And for those people not in pre-sales yet, it's a great chance for them to come out and find out what's so great about this role.
Absolutely, Kevin. I love it. And you nailed it because we built relationships virtually. And I think PreSales Collective has built a lot of affinity with the community because we started when the pandemic happened. The pandemic happened. We were used to building relationships in the office. And I feel like PreSales Collective filled that void. And it's been 2 years. There's a lot of Zoom fatigue. There's a lot of virtual fatigue. So people want something else. And I think we want to capture that momentum as we go into this hybrid environment and say, hey, let's get together in person. Because all of our research and all of the data shows that people join communities for learning opportunities and networking opportunities. And when you actually dive into network opportunities, people prefer in-person, local versus virtual connections, which still have a place because then you're not bound by regions and locations and travel and time zone. But this desire to get in person, and we've already done a couple of these cities, Kevin. It's been a bit exhausting. I'm not going to lie. I always joke, but you guys are so used to hearing this. One, I forgot what it was like to network. I forgot what it was like to meet people in person. And I forgot what it was like to be productive on the road. I feel like I'm flexing new muscles and relearning skills, but it has been invigorating and amazing being in person, meeting these people that we've been interacting with virtually for so long, and just understanding that this community is coming together, both virtually and in person.
No, you absolutely nailed it. It's so hard to build back up that muscle memory of getting back on the road on a regular basis and having those moments of, oh, wait, I forgot to throw this into my bag because I have to take this on trips, or how do I work in the hotel again? I'm not used to this all of a sudden. So it's been a very welcome change, but yeah, it's definitely relearning some old skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny is I pulled out my bag of cords, and I know that you have as well. So it's been nice to reuse that bag of cords. I'm like, I'm using something from my old SC days in our in-person events and connecting the AV and technology at these in-person events.
We won't mention the fact that I had to call my daughter because I got to the airport going to Denver last week and realized I left my laptop sitting on my desk.
Oh, you didn't actually tell me that one. So I love that I'm finding out live. So did you get the laptop?
I did. Yeah. Luckily, I didn't make the airport that narrow a gap. So I had some extra time to get it.
It's funny. When I went to London in the fall, I forgot my adapter and I forgot an iPhone charger. And I also only had an Amex credit card on me, and most corner stores and such were not accepting Amex. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like a travel rookie right now. This is terrible.
Oh, I know. It's the worst feeling.
It is. I called the front desk. I'm like, hey, I need a charger. I need an adapter. And like, we don't have those, sir. Well, we'll make do. So back on the road, flexing these new muscles. But Kevin, I just mentioned London, and we did a couple of events in cities over the end of summer and into fall. So what's different now than what we did previously?
It's really what we've been talking about. The PreSales Collective was founded for this virtual world that we suddenly found ourselves in. We had a lot of our local chapters hosting virtual meetings quite successfully. And last fall, we had a few testing the waters for in-person. It was a bit early. People were still hesitant to come out. Some cities were more open than others. The difference now with the world tour, first off, we've planned a full schedule. So we actually have it laid out for the next 2.5 months. You can see that entire schedule. That's a big difference. And the other piece is people really are now ready to socialize. We've seen people early last year saying, hey, this is the very first social event I've done. I don't know that I feel good about this. And now we're starting to hear people talk about, hey, I'm back on the road for customer calls again. Hey, I'm back in the office. What we're seeing differently now is all of that energy that was pent up for the last 2 years is starting to break through. And people are really just craving that. I want to get out of Zoom. I want to get out of another virtual meeting. I actually want to connect with people again. And so it's been a very different environment across the world as people are really starting to open back up.
That's a great perspective, Kevin. And actually in the podcast, episode 97 with Tom Banton, Back on the Road, we talk about things like greetings. And he talks about in the professional setting that some people still are not sure what to do. But I don't know about you, but in this PreSales Collective setting, I have given more hugs to pre-sales professionals than I would have expected. It just seems like this level of comfortability has changed entirely. And I think we as an organization, we use some of those cities to test the waters, to figure out, was in person what people wanted? Was it safe to do so? What was the actual event and playbook mechanism? So for example, none of us live in Dallas, but we have events in Dallas. And so how do we make sure that we host a good event? What kind of venues are we looking for? What kind of spaces are we looking for? And now we're tuning that up. Not to tell too many surprises, right? But we've really worked on some of the details to make these events better and better and better. And taking a major step back, I feel like we're finally getting to the vision of PreSales Collective. I'm the first to admit that I was absolutely wrong in the pandemic. Is like when we launched PreSales Collective, we thought we would be virtual for 3 months and we were going to be doing in-person events at the end of the summer. And obviously that did not happen. And I think now we're starting to see how the vision of PreSales Collective is coming to life, because what it was always intended to be was both an in-person and virtual community, that no matter where you were in the globe, no matter what role you were in, no matter how long you've been in the profession, there's something for you in the way that you want to digest the PreSales Collective. So if you only want to do virtual webinars and read the blogs and passively absorb the resources, you can. But if you want to get active and engaged and be in person and go to conferences and events, we want to have that offering there too. And I think that's the best part for me is that I'm starting to see things really come to life. And I'm starting to see the PreSales Collective really become a global organization that both sits virtually and in person.
I think that's a great point. We've seen so many companies and organizations in the pandemic move to that digital transformation. Hey, suddenly everything has to be virtual. And what you're seeing now is a lot of them haven't figured out how to go back or how to be a hybrid. You see people starting to swing to the other pole now of, all right, now virtual is completely over for us. And I think that PreSales Collective has done a great job of riding that line of, we want to truly be a hybrid organization. As you said, we're going to have virtual offerings. We're never going to get rid of those. And we're going to keep trying to make those even better, improve them all along the way. And now we're working out with the Spring World Tour. All right, here were some of those learnings we had from last year. How do we now make that in person, the in real life part of it, completely open as well?
Absolutely. And so I have to ask you, we've talked a little bit about some of our experiences, but what has been your favorite part of the Spring World Tour so far?
I don't think it's a secret based on everything we've discussed here. It's really seeing that excitement from our members as they get to make those real connections with people. I've seen people, I know you have too, that we've only met virtually. We've had decent relationships that we've built over Zoom and calls and all of that, but it's not the same thing as actually seeing them in person and really making that connection. I've also seen people interviewing for new positions at these events, which has been great. I see people building those relationships that they just can't do over Zoom. It's just not possible and it's not the same.
You're right. It's not the same. The level of depth that you can go to in person is just something that is really hard to replicate virtually. You called out the interviews. Like that's been some of the coolest parts that I feel like we've seen is like people actually meeting to interview, talking about jobs, talking about opportunities. The barrier to entry is lower than ever at this point to make a move and find the job of your dreams. One of the things that I loved about the Atlanta event is we had so many aspiring sales engineers there. It was just so rewarding talking to these folks who've said, hey, I've been wanting to get in this career. I've been following the PreSales Collective, or I finally joined PreSales Academy. And hearing those stories in real life, Kevin, it just brings me so much joy. A lot of people ask me like, why'd you quit this amazing job at Salesforce? And it was because of the impact that we were making. The messages that we would get of people getting jobs and promotions and utilizing the podcast. And when you were actually face to face hearing those stories and just seeing the joy on people's face that the members of this community are bringing to each other, there's just no better feeling, right? You want to talk about impact that people in this profession are making on each other. It's not even quantifiable. I even have trouble trying to describe it. It's just unbelievable. It's so rewarding. And I just can't wait to see it continue.
Absolutely. It's so rewarding to be part of that and have members come up and say, thank you for building up this platform. Thank you for giving us this avenue to find other people.
Good point, Kevin. And actually, as it comes to community feedback, we've had a lot of people say, well, why are we not having an event in Singapore? Why are we not having an event in Berlin? Why are we not having an event in Columbus, Ohio? But we have a solution for this. So can you talk about what are our community-led events?
I loved that part when we rolled out our world tour announcement, listing out all the cities, and immediately got several members reaching out going, hey, why aren't you coming to my town? And the short answer is we can't go everywhere as much as we want to. And so we've created a mechanism for people in cities that we don't have on the current tour and still want to get together, still want to have some of that community building on their own. We have a platform that people can use within the PreSales Collective to gather registrations and really just let people know that, hey, I'm going to be at this restaurant on Friday night. Would love anybody that wants to hang out. We're not expecting people to put on big, giant formal events, the type that we're hosting. It's more the, hey, I want to get together. If 3 or 4 people come out, that's great. I get to meet 3 or 4 people that I didn't know before.
So well said, Kevin. I think that is part of the vision too, is right. We want to continue to empower people with this platform of PreSales Collective. And we believe that there's a lot of value in in-person events. And I don't want PreSales Collective to be the barrier. If we're going to go to one of these cities, we're talking about flights, hotels, renting venues. working on logistics. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Sometimes that's not necessarily needed. And I think that's why this mechanism of community-led events is so important. I mean, the first one we did in February 2020 was in Indianapolis. Steve Bullington, PreSales Collective ambassador, said, hey, I'm going to get people together at this bar. And we had people just show up to an area, and there was about 20 folks in town who just connected on pre-sales. And it was incredible to see. And it's a low lift, high value action item, the way I look at it. We've already seen people in Chennai, in Tel Aviv, in places where we haven't actually had events say, hey, we want to host something for the community. And we want to give the folks who want to get engaged and be empowered to host events that opportunity. We have the platform, we have the members across the globe. So how do we continue to just be omnipresent, make PreSales Collective available anywhere for anyone? And you said it best. There could be 3 people that come to an event. We've seen the UK and Austin do all kind of co-working and coffee events where people just come and work together and grab coffee, chit chat. That's incredible. We don't need to look at that event as, oh, we have 100 people, we have 200 people signed up. It's just the fact that we have the event. And even if 1 or 2 people show up, that's a success. That is a relationship building that we can continue to highlight and have happen in this community. Kevin, you mentioned that there's ways for people to get involved with PreSales Collective, whether it's a community-led event, submitting a blog, nominating someone for the podcast or webinar. So many people continue to ask how to get involved. What should they do?
First and foremost, come out to our events, whether that is one of our in-person events on the world tour or our virtual webinars that are happening all the time. Come out and participate. It's a chance to meet other members, share your stories, ask about theirs. Secondly, I would say encourage your peers to come out too. Find someone else that maybe can tag along with you to a pre-sales world tour event, or encourage someone else to sign up for a webinar that you found interesting. Encourage people to join the PreSales Collective. If you want to get directly involved, we actually have a link right on the website, presalescollective.com/contribute. And it's a place that any member can come and share content ideas, whether that's a webinar idea, a podcast, a blog. They could volunteer to be a guest speaker, or as we've talked about, they can volunteer to host one of those community events in their city.
I love that. I think PreSales Collective Contribute, really appreciate you putting that together. It's just a great way to get people engaged and involved. And one of the things I've actually already heard on the spring tour is that some pre-sales professionals and pre-sales leaders are putting involvement and engagement with the PreSales Collective as part of their personal goals and even their MBOs on getting engaged. And, we want to continue to highlight the amazing people in this profession, give them that opportunity. So presalescollective.com/contribute is the place to go. Kevin, you've done a fantastic job on the Spring World Tour. I really appreciate all the energy and effort that you're putting into this. I want to end with an advice question. So for those who are maybe on the fence on attending one of these events, why should they show up?
I'm going to paraphrase Ryan Lavalle's from Salesforce. He had a quote at our New York event last year saying, it's so refreshing to walk into a room full of people and not have to explain what my job is. And I think that was just so powerful for all of us to think about of like, yeah, this is an event that I can go to and I don't have to say, well, do you know what pre-sales is? Let me tell you about that first before I talk about what I actually do. It's a chance to meet and talk with people who know exactly what you face every day. It's people who can commiserate with you if that's what you need, or share some advice on how they've overcome similar issues. When it gets down to it, you're simply not going to find a friendlier, more accessible, or more knowledgeable pre-sales group than what we see in the room at every one of our events.
Mic drop, Kevin. Fantastic answer. I know that I always end on the advice question, but I actually have a secret question for today. So to give people a little bit of insight, at our event in Austin, we did a team offsite. And we did some exercises around strengths, Gallup strengths, goal setting. And what we heard from you on one of your ambitious goals is that you want to host a pre-sales conference. Is that right, Kevin?
That is absolutely right. Now you're making me putting it out in the public, so I'm going to have to follow through on it.
Let's do it.
And I will say, not a secret. It's certainly one of the things when I was interviewing that you and Yuji both shared of like, ultimately, this is what we would love to do. So yeah, it's very much now on my goals and my commitment list that I want to host an in-person, large-scale pre-sales conference.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining me on the PreSales podcast. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate all that you're doing for the community. I'll talk to you probably soon.
Thank you so much, James. It was great to have the conversation, and I look forward to seeing all the members out on our world tour soon.
Me too. Thanks, Kevin. All right, PreSales Collective. After today's episode, I hope that gives you the nudge that you may or may not need to come to our in-person events. Again, it has just been incredible meeting people face to face. And so I am going to encourage you to come to our events if we're going to be in your local city. Even if you only show up for 10 to 15, 30 minutes just to say hello, introduce yourself to some individuals, that is a win. We want to continue to build relationships in person. And we have put a ton of time, a ton of energy, and a ton of effort into making sure that this Spring World Tour is a massive success for everybody. And it will continue to lead our strategy into the summer and into the fall. As Kevin mentioned, we're continuing to provide opportunities to highlight you in your role, your organization. And so presalescollective.com/contribute is a very important link. And as we mentioned, there's a number of individuals, upwards of a dozen pre-sales professionals who have already reached out to say, hey, I want to host a local event. We've done Berlin, we've done Indianapolis, Tel Aviv. We'll be doing Singapore, Chennai, St. Louis, and a number of other cities around the US and around the globe. And so if you're interested in getting involved and engaged, that is the place to go. All right, PreSales Collective. I really hope to see you on the Spring World Tour. Would love to hear your experience of PreSales Collective, hear where we're providing value, what we could be doing better, because that's really important to us. Grab a colleague, grab a friend, grab an aspiring pre-sales professional, and we'll see you on the Spring World Tour. See you next week.